Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar on how to streamline your logistics processes with digital solutions to save your business both time and money. My name is William Barnes-Graham and I am the Digital Content Manager at Open to Export. We are an online community helping small UK businesses get ready to sell overseas through our step-by-step articles and guides, regular webinars, Ask the Experts forum, and our Export Action Plan tool. You can find all of these on our website at www.opentoexport.com. Open to Export is powered by the Institute of Export and International Trade, the UK's only professional membership body for international trade, offering a unique range of individual and business membership benefits, education and training catering for beginners through to master's degrees, and an always exciting and prestigious programme of events celebrating UK businesses' exporting achievements. We will be running a live Q&A at the end of the session, and you can ask questions at any point during this webinar using the question box on the control panel to the right-hand side of your screen. So please do ask questions throughout the session and we'll try and get them to the panel at the end. We have two great speakers today who will introduce themselves shortly. These are Alex Hersham, the CEO of Zencargo, a digital freight forwarder for sea and air and road cargo. And Alex is joined by Sanjeev Jeyakumar from on-demand warehousing provider Stowga. So without further ado, over to you, Alex and Sanjeev.
Great, thanks a lot, and welcome everybody to this webinar. Will, can I ask you to go to the next slide, please? Sanjeev, maybe you can jump in and give everyone a quick background on yourself.
Sure. Firstly, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining. So my name is Sanjeev Jeyakumar, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Stowga. And Stowga is an online B2B marketplace platform for warehousing services. So essentially, we connect warehouses with businesses looking for any warehousing services, which may include storage, transport, fulfillment, and any other related services. And we aim to create a marketplace to make the whole process of finding, managing, and agreeing warehousing a lot easier, faster, and more efficient. And over to you, Alex, to explain a bit more about Zencargo.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, Sanjeev. So my name is Alex Hersham. I'm the CEO of Zencargo. We are a digital-first freight forwarder. I'll explain more of what that means later, but essentially we are a freight forwarder with a digital platform on top. Will, perhaps we can go to the next slide and start kicking off some of the interesting content. Great. So before we jump into the individual slides and hacks we're going to teach everyone, this slide here sort of outlines the main problems that we hear from logistics managers up and down the country. Paperwork, huge amounts of paperwork, a lot of time spent on the overall process, chasing their forwarders, whether it be for a quote or whether it be for paperwork or delivery or pickup information, opaque pricing, and no easy access to data across their entirety of their freight spend. So really, some of these problems are more 20th century problems that perhaps the industry should have fixed already. And we're going to walk through some options with tools available, readily available, some hacks, and also describe what we do at Zencargo and Stowga. Next slide, please, Will. So why are we waiting? Stop waiting for your forwarder. This is something that we hear all the time from our customers. Always saying that they're waiting on their forwarder for, as I mentioned before, a quote or for some information around their current shipments or price. Will, again, do you mind going to the next slide? So what we've realized is that there's a reason why everyone's waiting, and that's because forwarders are overloaded. They're overloaded with a huge amount of paperwork, limited digitization, multiple time zones, and their business operates a bit like a production line. And this leaves customers waiting for pretty much all of those points that I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. So the first thing that we're going to run through is how to end the long email chain nightmare. And this is a bunch of things. This is not only, emailing your forwarder and having a dozen people in copy as they operate, with multiple personnel. but also saving you the hassle of having to search through your inbox to find documents relating to specific trades or to find answers to questions, etc., etc. Next slide, please. So, really the buckets that we see are pricing, communication, and documentation. On pricing, I think it's very difficult to solve that problem without working with a digital forwarder. But with communication and documentations, there's sort of a couple of tools that you can use. Firstly, on communication, we would encourage everybody to set up a Slack or a Skype channel with their forwarders. Just dump all of your contacts at an individual forwarder in one channel, and that will really clean up your inbox. And the second thing really on documents is creating a Trello board. So if you go to the next slide here, Will. Thanks a lot. So we can help any of you guys set this up, but Trello is a free online tool where you can create workflows. And as you can see in this image, it's really easy to custom build a Trello board that will pretty much solve for all of your outstanding shipments. So we could help you guys set up one where it has outstanding shipment by different freight forwarder or by different trade lane, and your forwarder will be able to access that, deposit all the documents in one place, and sort of keep that abreast for you. It's almost like forcing your forwarder into the 21st century. Next slide, please. And the one after, sorry about that. So at Zencargo, and thanks Sanjeev for your description of what you guys do at Stowga, at Zencargo, we've tried to sort of digitize all of this for you. So really what we're trying to do is put everything in one place. You can see, this is sort of the dashboard where you can see active shipments, shipment delivery updates, action items, and cargo intelligence across all of your shipments. And on the next slide, you can, this is just an example of how to book. It's sort of a very easy online platform to book instantaneously. And this is really what we're trying to do. I think what Stowga is trying to do, and various other people in the industry, is really push the industry into the 21st century. Maybe we can tackle the next section with the next slide, please, Will. So, second major problem. Where are my goods? I love the subtitle here, stop asking, start knowing. Can we hit the next slide? So there's a huge amount of time wasted calling and waiting for your forwarder on tracking. And there are a couple of online services to help you track any shipment or container. You have track-trace.com, you have Vessel Finder. This works for both full container and less than container. You should get your container number or the vessel details by your forwarder on your bit of lading. And so all that information can be updated there. The other thing that I think would save companies a huge amount of time is if you use tools like Google Sheets, which is essentially Microsoft Office but operated in the cloud, you can custom create a workflow with all of your shipments, and again get your forwarder to update that in the cloud, and you can always see every time they make an update, you can see that and you'll always be on top of it. How are you guys doing it at Stowga? Maybe we can go to the next slide and you can tell me how you guys are doing this.
Thanks very much, Alex. So in terms of geographical distribution of goods, I mean, if you think about it, really, transport and location of warehouse are really two sides of the same coin. So the way we look at it is with regard to distribution of warehousing, what we have is a network of approximately around 4,000 supply sites across the UK. And this includes warehouses, fulfillment centers, and even temperature control sites. So what our platform does is allow clients to manage what's called a distributed warehouse strategy. So rather than having one or two big distribution centers, clients can manage a network of warehouses across the country, which allows them really to position their goods exactly where they want and when they want them. This has got kind of a couple of major advantages for our client, but one is that they can be far closer to their customers, which helps them both manage their inventory supply, but also cut their transport costs, which can be quite substantial, especially in the fast consumer goods sector. And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, I think by having this distributed warehouse strategy and having sites close to where your customers are, you can be far more responsive in changes to customer demands and needs, which makes the entire supply chain far more flexible. Another element worth mentioning at this point is that we're working with warehouses to try and integrate information from their own specific warehouse management system onto our platform. So down the road, you can understand things like stock level, order status, and all the other information relating to your inventory on one integrated platform. So moving on to the next
awesome.
slide.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, over to you, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Will. If you wouldn't mind just going back one slide, I can talk about how we do it at Zencargo. So at Zencargo, we try and keep everything purely in context. So you can see all of your shipments in one dashboard, which you can see on the left-hand side there. And then as you click on any of your active shipments, you can drill down into the information. You can see the route progress, the documents, etc. Why don't we jump 2 slides ahead?
Cool.
So how much, why don't you kick this off, Sanjeev?
Sure, thank you, Alex. So looking at kind of how much space we need and how long, I mean, this is a typical question we get from a lot of our clients. A lot of our clients are really quite fast-moving, dynamic businesses. They're often expanding very fast, and so increasingly it's becoming a difficult question to predict how much space they'll need. So if we move on to the next slide, please, Alex. So just to, I kind of want to go over some of the basic industry problems that exist in the warehousing space at the moment. As we mentioned, it's a very, very opaque market. There isn't a central database of what warehousing is available or what the available capacity is. Secondly, there isn't any way of searching for this space. At the moment, for those of you who've got the process of finding warehouses, the process consists of going along, trying to find, pulling them up, and potentially waiting days or weeks for an email response. And so what we're doing is creating a platform that makes it very searchable and compare pricing. One of the key issues in the industry is that on one side you've got a lot of spare capacity in the UK, and at any one point there's over 340 million square feet of unused warehousing capacity. On the other side you've got a huge amount of demand for this space, especially on a short-term basis, and there's no way of currently connecting that supply and demand. And the final kind of major problem that exists. Sorry, Alex.
No, go on.
And the final main problem that exists is that as a warehouse, you're generally either underutilized or overutilized, and there's no way for you to smooth out that demand that you may face from your customers.
And how do you see business requirements changing going forward here?
Sure. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So the changing business needs are really quite crucial, especially with things like Brexit, which introduce a lot more uncertainty and volatility into the UK economy. So I think increasingly going forward, because of things like Brexit, because of the increased rate of technological change, flexibility is becoming increasingly crucial in all businesses. And the way the industry is structured at the moment is a mismatch between landlords who want long-term warehouse leases and fixed revenue, and tenants, users of warehouses, that have no way of predicting those requirements, and which means that they're either underutilizing the space or don't have enough space. The other thing to highlight is that inherently a lot of our customers' sectors tend to be quite cyclical and seasonal. So, for example, some of our customers have 4 or 5 times as much storage required around December than they do in March, and dealing with that cyclicality by having a fixed warehousing base is pretty tricky. And the last thing to highlight is generally the growth in startups and the e-commerce industry. So as we have a growth in these sectors, a lot of these startups have to be quite fast-moving and responsive to changing customer preferences, which means they don't want to invest in the huge fixed costs that warehousing represent. What they really want is the idea of warehousing as a service. They want access to it when they want and how often they want, without the long-term obligation of actually owning the warehouse itself. So on to the next slide, please, Alex. So what are we doing, kind of Stowga, to deal with these issues? So firstly, we're applying the principles from other kind of sharing businesses like Airbnb to warehousing, and this unlocks a huge amount of unused capacity. By creating a platform where not only warehouses, but also sitting on spare space, can go online and upload their spare capacity, we're basically removing the need for them to go out and individually market their space. And suddenly all this unused, previously dead capacity is now online, which can be matched with any businesses who are looking for short-term warehousing space and services. Secondly, as we touched on, as Alex mentioned earlier, by digitizing the entire process, we're collecting data around the different elements of the supply chain. So we're collecting data on storage, on transport, fulfillment, data to be used with our clients to help optimize the supply chain and think about potentially storing things in different places to benefit from the cost advantages. And lastly, the thing I want to highlight, the idea I touched on, the idea of warehousing as a service. This means we're effectively converting the long-term cost of having a warehouse and replacing that with a totally variable cost, which can be easily increased and decreased depending on the level of business activity. That adds a huge amount of flexibility to any business and allows it to react far quickly and cheaply to any volatility. And our aim is to remove the problems of companies paying for space they're not using, which we estimate alone in the UK is worth $1.4 billion. So it's a really quite substantial problem to tackle. So on to the next slide, please. So over to you, Alex, to talk about how Zencargo is using this digitization to help customers analyze their supply chain and what analytics services you're providing.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. So the last major segment here is really around reporting. And supply chain analytics, analyzing costs, is a real pain currently. If we go to the next slide, so there's a couple of analytics hacks as well that you can use. They really revolve around Excel again and getting your forwarder to update, your spending patterns. And we'd be very happy to build a custom Excel file or Google Sheets for anyone here if they will do that. The problem is that that's still quite painful and there's still a lot of work, and analytics is really a space that's very difficult to sort of try to automate with a few hacks. With stuff like fully landed cost analysis, again, we can build you a customized Excel sheet that pulls in sort of VAT and duties estimator and tries to split it out by your SKUs. But I think really here, this is another one of those spaces like instant pricing where really the industry needs to move forward. And if we flick to the next slide, I can talk a little bit about what we're doing at Zencargo. Great, thanks so much. So this is just like a quick snapshot of some of the information you can see in the analytics section at Zencargo. In the top left, it's monthly freight spends, sales by customer, global sales, average delay. But what we're really trying to do, I know the guys at Stowga are trying to do this as well, and I think generally the digitization trade is to really make it super easy to analyze things like fully landed costs. Not only what does it cost to procure my goods, but on a SKU by SKU level, how much does it cost to get it all the way here and into my warehouse ready to be shipped to my customer? I don't know if there are any more slides there, or if we should flick it over to some Q&A. Oh, there we are.
Great, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Sanjeev. Had a couple of Wi-Fi issues at one point there, but I think we mostly got through it. But yeah, as Alex said, we'll open the floor to questions. The first is from Nina, and it's going to be for Sanjeev. Nina's asked, she's been on Stowga as she needs fulfillment supplier for her business while on holiday in August, but is not able to use Stowga as it doesn't seem to have a large enough stock size. So she's just asking, do you have any suggestions for smaller brands, or do you do anything for smaller brands as well? So
firstly, thanks, Nina, for your question. Well, on our site, we've got just over 4,000 sites. On our website, we've got 4,000 supply sites across the UK. A lot of them are 3PLs, so third-party logistics providers that provide all the services, like you mentioned, around fulfillment, transport, and things like that. So I'll be more than happy to work with you to try and find a solution that'll work. But just to give you an idea of the range of deals we're doing, some of our customers are as small as 10 pallets, and we've managed to get them a storage solution which includes delivery, transport, fulfillment, and everything else. So I think generally anything upwards of 20 pallets or 10 pallets, we'll be able to find you a solution, depending on how flexible you are with regard to location and cost. But the good thing about our platform is that it's probably the most complete database of warehousing in the UK, and there really is a price point for everyone. So to give you an idea, I mean, we've got some sites that charge £7 a pallet for specialist frozen storage, and we've got some sites that charge £1 a pallet for areas in the north that are a bit more cheap. So I'd definitely be more than happy to kind of reach out after this and work with you to try and find you something that'll work for your business.
Many thanks, Sanjeev. And we've had a question in from David, who's asked, what sort of companies do Zencargo and Stowga work with? So I guess we'll open that to Alex first and then Sanjeev after.
Great, thanks a lot, and thanks for the question. We work with UK importers and exporters really of all sizes. We work with sort of the medium to larger size industrial companies all the way through to the sort of smaller, just getting started Amazon retailers, resellers or e-tailers. So we really work with companies across the size spectrum, importing and exporting. And our main aim is really to simplify and break down the barriers to trade. And so we're happy to work with companies of all sizes. Sanjeev?
Yeah, I mean, I think my answer will echo some of the sentiments that Alex mentioned. I mean, just to give you an example of some of the customers we're working with, we've got one entrepreneur who's kind of just released a range of kind of fizzy coconut water. We're working with a FTSE 250 company to manage 9 sites for them across the country, and they sell fizzy drink. We're working with an electronics manufacturer that we've got a fulfillment center for in the south of England, and they distribute across Europe. And we've even got a manufacturer of saunas who imports saunas from the east and sells them across Europe. So really the full range from small entrepreneur looking for 10 pallets to large institution who's managing hundreds if not thousands of pallets. And I think, as Alex mentioned, our focus is on really that layer of customer experience and that layer of making it easy, simple and straightforward to look at and compare pricing for warehousing services. So there really isn't any customer, the full range from small entrepreneur to large multinational institution.
Thank you both. A question just in from Callum, and Callum is a small business exporting bicycles globally, and he asked kind of they export approximately 30 large individual items per month through TNT and Parcelforce, and he asked how can Zencargo help us in terms of moving away from those sorts of traditional couriers. Alex?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, obviously, firstly, on providing a suite of different solutions and giving you a variety of pricing options. That's sort of firstly. But secondly, when you start to have, more than 1 or 2 shipments on the go at any one time, most companies that we see, and I used to see when I was, running an FMCG business, was that it's really difficult to manage, and everything, like we were talking about before, all the balls start to get thrown up in the air around documentation, around where are my goods, etc. So really for that particular exporter, I would say that the biggest piece of value would be around having everything in one place, knowing where all your shipments are, having all the documentation where you think they should be, and really streamlining your life and saving you guys a huge amount of time.
Thank you, Alex. And another question in this time from Jamie. He just asked, how long does it take to get set up with Zencargo or Stowga? So yeah, I guess Alex first, then Sanjeev, and how long it takes to become a customer and for it all to be kind of up and functioning.
I reckon we're going to have very similar answers here. It's super quick on our end. We'd love to speak or meet anyone beforehand, but we can set anybody up within 20 minutes. Sanjeev?
Yeah, I mean, as Alex said, it's a very, very quick process. Our kind of focus is on making it as easy as possible. So it's a case of 10, 20 minutes to become a customer. In terms of the process, we've got legals which we get agreed, which we use with all our warehouses. So the good thing is, once you've got the legals agreed, if you want to manage 1 site, 10 sites or 20 sites, it's not any duplication of work. But in terms of kind of time frame, we've had customers who call us and end up getting in a warehouse within 48 hours. Sometimes it takes a few days, sometimes a few weeks, but generally I'd say the lead times are quite low because we try and make the processes as seamless as possible.
Thank you both. And we've had a question in from Irina, who exports and looks for solutions such as labeling, consolidation, delivery to Ukraine at competitive prices. Is this something that either of you help with, and how so, I guess? Alex and Sanjeev again, I think.
Yeah, we could definitely help. I'd be very happy if you want to email me. I don't know if my email address is out there, just alex@zencargo.com, and we can set up a call and try and figure out the ways of that we can help your business as efficiently as possible. But it's certainly something that we can help with.
And definitely, again, on our side, we've got, for example, a customer that does not the same, but a similar operation where they need kind of palletization and labeling and distribution and fulfillment all from one center, and they currently do it for electronics goods, and we do distribution across Europe and even North America. So we've definitely got sites that would have the capabilities to perform that for you, and we can definitely speak further about how to get that set up.
Thank you both. A question in from Kathleen, who asked, do these platform/tools produce records for auditing purposes that satisfy regulatory requirements for the country the goods are exported from? So again, Alex, then Sanjeev.
Yeah, for things like certificate of origin or any other documentation that needs to be retained, we obviously have a team of highly qualified people working behind the scenes to make sure all the documentation is correct, is rightly audited, and all the documents will be stored for many years after any of your shipments have been done. So if you want to look through any of your past shipments with us, find all the documentation attached to that, including some of the documents that you just outlined, that will always be there, and we have a great team of people doing it behind the scenes. I mean, so across all types of goods, whether sort of typical freight or whether it be hazardous or refit freight, across all types of goods we can definitely support that.
Sure, and to add to Alex's comments, again, the advantage of digitizing the entire process of warehousing services is that it's very easy to keep records and documentation relating to each request, relating to each invoice, precisely how much storage is used, fulfillment is used. So we do generate and store a lot of data around the request and the service. With regard to specifically having them conform to regulatory requirements in different countries, again, similar to Alex, you've got a team of people, a legal team who can help on an individual basis try and create those reports in a way that will be fulfill the regulatory requirements of your specific case.
Thank you. And a question we had in advance was actually to do with data, and it's from Martin, who asks, how do you both use data from your platforms to help businesses with decision making around logistics? So again, Alex, then Sanjeev.
Yeah, sure. Actually, Sanjeev, just to mix it up, do you want to take this one first, and I'll jump in after?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So at Stowga, I mean, we're an incredibly data-centric company, and a large part of our value proposition is that we're collecting data on the back of each warehouse request on the various warehousing services. So for example, we'll build up a map of how much storage and transport may cost in different areas of the country, according to seasonalities for different times, and also, for example, how much fulfillment will cost in different sites. And so by collecting all that data, we're basically creating data that does not currently exist, and then we can basically work with our customers to mean that they're more proactive with regard to managing their supply chain. So for example, if they know that storage in the south and east of London is very, very expensive coming into November and December ahead of Christmas, we can look at other options where they store their goods up north, and then we do all the haulage and transport of moving it further south. We can also look at, again, managing kind of seasonal variations. So if we know that chilled or food-related storage spikes and becomes more expensive around November, we can work with them to figure out other solutions. So we're an incredibly data-centric company, and our aim is to use data from our platform to help our customers be far more proactive in managing their supply chain, and hopefully using information to ultimately save a lot of money and time with regard to their logistics.
Awesome, thanks for that. Yeah, and at Zencargo, we sort of have three pillars of value that we try to provide to our customers on the digital front. The first being sort of the instant booking, the second being having all your documentation in one place, but the third really being data. And with a traditional forwarder, if a shipment is moved from A to B, all the data around that, whether it be the price, whether it be the timeliness, whether it be how your supplier was in terms of their timeliness and how prompt they were versus plan, that's all stored and represented to you. And I'll give you one quick example. We had a customer who is an importer of electronic goods coming in from Asia, and we've sort of customized their reporting such that they can now see on a commodity code or an SKU basis how much they're spending on freight every month by different mode of transportation, whether it be air, sea, etc. And that really is for them what they want to see. But definitely, just to echo what the Stowga guys were saying, data is a huge part of digitization of this industry, whether it be in logistics or warehousing or whatever it might be. And it's definitely central to what we're both trying to do.
Many thanks. And another question from Callum is just asking, do you guys have integrations with e-commerce platforms such as Spree? How about Sanjeev first again, and then.
Sure. So I can't speak specifically to Spree, but we do have a large amount of our warehouses that have APIs which allow you as a customer to integrate your e-commerce site or your fulfillment center into the warehouse, such that when you get an order for your particular good, it's automatically generated their end, they've generated a label, and they've shipped it out. So we do have a lot of warehouses that have API integrations or even warehouse management systems that you can integrate with. So I'm more than happy to speak with you kind of in more detail around that to see if your particular software that you use can be integrated with some of our warehouses and their APIs.
Great. And on our end, we're currently in the process of finalizing our API, which will integrate into ERP systems or procurement management systems or various different systems that are used, and that should be available later this year. We don't integrate directly with that platform that was mentioned, but we are building our API, and it should be done within a couple of months.
Thank you both. And a question we've had from Joanna is to do with just the amount of time which is saved using these, because obviously a lot of our users and followers here today are company short on time to do all of the logistics and to kind of handle them themselves. So I guess how much time in terms of an SME can you guys save for our audience? Alex and Sanjeev.
Great. Yeah, I mean, we recently did a piece of work with one of our mid-sized clients who have been working with us for months now, and they estimated to us that over the course of the year we saved them around 500 hours. And actually quite a bit of that comes from analytics, which we were discussing before, which really saves a huge amount of time on internal reporting. But the other points, online booking, having everything in one place, not needing to chase your forwarder to know where your goods are or to update delivery details, etc. It's just, we really built a system that optimizes for time saving, and we have a lot of sort of customer testimonials that speak to that. Sanjeev, perhaps you want to jump in here?
Yeah, so just to add to what Alex mentioned on the freight forwarding side, I mean, for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of ringing around and trying to find warehousing space for a business, I mean, the current process involves getting on Google, trying to find some sites, calling them, and then a lot of back and forth, both on phone and email, to clarify exactly what's needed and what the costings are. And a large part of what we're trying to do at Stowga is kind of introducing a taxonomy of how quoting should look, because in the context of warehousing, often you get multiple different quotes, so essentially what is the same service. And so by introducing a taxonomy of how quoting will look, it basically makes it a far more clear and easy to understand. It makes the whole process of finding a quote far more straightforward. So in terms of, how the average process looks, I've had some stories of clients spending, 2 and up to 3 months calling around different warehousing, trying to find something that'll work. And then by going through our platform, they've saved, it can be in a fraction of the time. Often it can be a couple of days, maybe a week, but it's a fraction of the time. And there's a couple of reasons why that is. One is that you're speaking to a team and people who've got experience in the logistics sector. So they understand exactly the questions you need to ask and the kind of things you need to deal with ahead of time, helps cut time. And second idea is, factor is the idea of creating that platform, which makes it really easy to compare, really easy to see different alternatives, and you get access to basically 4,000 sites across the country instantly. So rather than calling around 5 or 10, your request will be dealt with by us, and we've got a map of all the different sites that could potentially fulfill your request, and straight away we'll cut down the number of options to the ones that make the most sense and send you back in a couple of days some options. So in terms of time saved, I'd say often it can be 5 to 10% of the time you would have spent if you'd gone the old-fashioned phone and internet way.
Thank you, Sanjeev. And another question from Callum, and he's asked kind of, are you guys price competitive for small UK businesses with their domestic shipments as well as overseas? Do you want to go Sanjeev, Van, Alex that time?
Sure. So with regard to kind of being price competitive, I think there's two things to consider. Firstly, one of the advantages of our platform is that we're matching customers with what was previously dead space or spare capacity. And so from the perspective of the warehouse, if they're sitting on empty space for 6 months and they get an inquiry in, they're going to price that at a far more aggressive rate than if you contact, a warehouse that might be full. And so by matching our demand with spare capacity, we're automatically getting our customers far, far cheaper rates than they would do if they couldn't locate where the spare capacity is. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is in terms of range of pricing, I think I mentioned earlier, we really have the full spectrum of warehousing options, from the very sophisticated fulfillment centers that have all the kind of technology to make it really, really slick and quick, which can be quite expensive, to the more basic warehouses where you just want to store something for a long period of time and not access it frequently. So we have the full range of, very competitive pricing to more bespoke warehousing but more costly, and it's all accessible on our platform. So it really is a question of the price point you want to go for as a customer. And Alex, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks for that. That's really interesting, actually. I mean, on our end, we definitely specialize in shipments coming into and out of the UK, and that's sort of been our forte. But we can definitely help out with sort of smaller national shipments as well.
Cool, thank you. And one last question, and this is from Lena, who asked just about, you mentioned kind of Trello and Google Sheets earlier. Kind of what other sorts of free solutions are there as well? Kind of, I don't know Jira off the top of my head, but kind of what other kind of free online software platforms are there which exporters can use to maybe streamline their costs and so on? Alex and Sanjeev.
Yeah, I would say that there are a bunch. The beauty of the ones that we mentioned today is really the fact that it can be collaborative, it can be very low cost, and it can be set up in a way where you can still work with a couple of forwarders and then try and put all the data back. So those are my two particular favorite ones. The other free way of doing it is to push your forwarder to digitize, or of course to come and speak to us, and our software is completely free. But I'd be happy to sort of take this conversation further offline, because there really are sort of a handful of other interesting, free digital solutions, but they're not really custom built for the space. It's sort of coordinating with a variety of suppliers becomes a bit tricky.
Yeah, and to add to what Alex mentioned, I mean, he's obviously mentioned, the two popular ones. Trello is really useful, kind of managing workflow, and Google Sheets and the various Google Office applications are really useful for collaboration. But what I would say is that, I mean, the easy solution really is just give us a call or drop us an email, because our service is completely free to use. We don't have any restriction with regard to you being from a certain location or a certain country. And we're more than happy, we've got a team of people more than happy to have a chat with you and talk about the various options, because as Alex mentioned, I think it's important to have a service or a company that's really focused around the logistic solution you're looking for, whether it's freight forwarding or warehousing. You want to speak to someone who's got experience in that sector. So our platform's completely free to use for customers, so we're more than happy just to have a preliminary conversation around the kind of warehousing service you're looking for and trying to help.
Many thanks to both, and I think on that note, we're probably going to wrap up. So thank you once again, Sanjeev and Alex. So some really good presentations and a very lively Q&A as well. So I hope everyone has found some of that useful today.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you all for joining.
Before I head off, I'm just going to draw your attention to a couple of events which are being run by the Institute of Export and International Trade. We are running multiple training courses in London, Birmingham and Manchester, ranging from beginning in export to courses in international documentation and customs compliance. So do have a look on the site for those. And I'd also like to draw attention to the Queen's Awards Gala Dinner in London this September. I've been to this twice and can definitely vouch for what is really a fabulous event celebrating the UK's wonderful exporters and a great chance to meet the people who really make this industry tick. You can sign up to all of these events and courses at export.org.uk. In terms of webinars coming up, we've got a couple coming up in August and September. They're going to be on kind of how to boost your sales overseas with some tips from some Queen's Award winning companies, and UK export finance as well. We're going to talk about funding opportunities. And then we've also got a session with the Food and Drink Exporters Association and SIAL, which is about making the most of international trade shows. So that should also be a very useful session for anyone looking at trade shows this autumn. That's all from us for now. Please take our exit survey to let us know what you thought of the webinar and to give us any suggestions for improvements or future topics. For now, goodbye everyone.